It was just past midnight on December 14, 2023, when the silence of Broomfield, Colorado was shattered. The apartment building stood quiet, each unit cloaked in darkness, the hum of the city fading behind closed doors. Most residents were fast asleep, unaware that within one of those otherwise ordinary apartments, a nightmare was quietly unfolding, one that would leave a permanent mark on everyone connected to it. When 911 emergency answered the call, they expected a routine response, a simple welfare check or a minor domestic disturbance. What they found instead would haunt those first responders for the rest of their lives. The call had been placed by Kristil Krug. Inside the garage, a woman was found unconscious, her body marked with stab wounds and blunt force trauma. A scene of chaos surrounded her, the air thick with the evidence of violence, yet there was no immediate clarity on how it had happened. What began as what could have been a simple check, a routine intervention, immediately transformed into a full-scale homicide investigation. The building, so familiar and calm just hours before, had become the setting for a tragedy that no one could have predicted. The quiet, orderly walls of the apartment now framed a shocking reality, the kind of moment that changes lives forever. Every detail mattered: the placement of her body, the signs of a struggle, the eerie stillness in the air after the violent act, and the chilling fact that this scene had been set by someone who was supposed to be trusted. This was not a random act of violence. Every call, every movement, every object in the space now told part of the story. The woman's life, interrupted mid-breath, became the center of a complicated web of events that authorities would only begin to untangle in the hours and days to come. Each minute leading to that call would become a critical clue, a thread pointing to a truth far more disturbing than the first responders could have imagined. Before we go further, I need to ask you, have you ever been witness to manipulation, control, and deception that gradually escalates into something you could never predict? A situation that starts with subtle harassment, small threats, odd behaviors, and yet, because it seems normal at first, no one sees the danger until it is too late. This woman, found in her garage with her life violently ended, had been trapped in an invisible web, one that wove together fear, power, and a chilling intent to harm. How does a single moment, one night, one call, capture years of manipulation, psychological pressure, and hidden threats? How could a life filled with hopes, dreams, and ordinary routines be interrupted so abruptly? And what could have tipped anyone off before the nightmare became reality? Have you ever noticed red flags in someone you trusted, someone close to you, that you ignored because you didn't want to believe the truth? That disbelief, that hesitation, can sometimes have consequences no one anticipates. In this case, the call to 911 was the only signal, the last warning before everything changed. If you have ever missed signs of danger in someone you love, share your experience in the comments below. Let the world know, because understanding these moments can help prevent tragedies from happening to others. And please subscribe to Bruised Voice, where we bring the stories that matter to light, the ones underreported, the voices that can no longer speak for themselves, but whose stories must be told. Kristil Krug grew up in a family that believed in doing right by others. Her parents, Linda and Lars Grimsrud, raised her with strong values rooted in faith and community. From a young age, Kristil was taught to lean on her beliefs during difficult times, and to always extend kindness to those around her. She was the type of daughter who called home regularly, someone who carried herself with integrity and a quiet strength. Kristil was a dancer and a biochemical engineer, balancing a demanding professional life with raising 3 children. Friends and colleagues described her as intelligent, kind, and generous. She remembered birthdays, showed up for family events, and was always present for those she cared about. Relatives recall her as someone with a big heart, genuinely invested in the well-being of everyone around her. Her children were at the center of every decision she made, and she worked tirelessly to ensure their safety, happiness, and emotional stability. In the months before her death, Kristil's family made a heartbreaking discovery. While going through her journals, they found detailed records of her efforts to protect herself, carrying a concealed weapon, installing security cameras, and maintaining a detailed stalker log. These entries dated back to 2020, years before anyone realized the depth of danger she was facing. Kristil had documented her concerns and fears in a way she never fully shared with those closest to her. A private record of a woman trying to navigate a life that was increasingly unsafe, all while shielding her children and family from worry. These writings reveal a young woman caught in a tense, psychological battle. She was proactive, aware, and diligent, yet constrained by the limitations of what she could do alone. Her journals serve as a painful reminder of how victims often suffer in silence, meticulously preparing for danger that the world cannot yet see. Neighbors and co-workers consistently noted Kristil's care and diligence. She was the friend who remembered your struggles, the one who checked in just to see how you were doing. She was a mother who fought for her children's well-being, a professional who demanded precision in her work, and a friend known for warmth and reliability. Yet behind the smiles and accomplishments, her life had been shadowed by threats and harassment that no one could have predicted would escalate to murder. Kristil's days were a balancing act of professional responsibilities, parenting, and self-preservation. She was constantly mindful of her children's schedules, the neighborhood, and potential threats. Even as a competent, self-reliant woman, the orchestration of danger she faced was invisible to almost everyone around her. Her vigilance was not paranoia, it was a rational response to repeated, targeted harassment that would ultimately culminate in tragedy. Daniel Krug entered Kristil's life in what initially appeared to be a period of shared plans and mutual support. Her family welcomed him warmly, seeing in him a partner capable of supporting Kristil and her children. Together, they had children and began building a life that many would describe as a typical family structure. But over time, the relationship shifted. Disagreements became troubling, communication frayed, and what once seemed like ordinary marital conflict became increasingly toxic. Kristil's mother later told police that Kristil had been considering divorce and custody arrangements for their children before her untimely death. Separation had begun to strain the marriage, and with it, Daniel Krug began to exhibit controlling and manipulative behaviors. For months, Daniel orchestrated a campaign of psychological manipulation. He created a false online persona, posing as Kristil's ex-boyfriend, and sent threatening messages, vulgar emails, and deceptive communications. He carefully monitored her movements, ensuring he could observe her daily routines from leaving for work to returning home. Residents and neighbors reported seeing the same vehicle waiting for hours outside her home or along her typical routes, though they assumed it was relationship drama, something that often goes overlooked. Private investigators later confirmed that Daniel positioned himself strategically to watch Kristil, tracking her schedule with precision. Every threat, every harassing message, every moment of anxiety she endured had been engineered to coerce and control her. She had become trapped in a psychological battleground, one that no one could see, because the puppet master pulling the strings was the person she trusted most. Kristil's meticulous precautions, concealed firearms, security cameras, and detailed stalker log, were a testament to her awareness of danger, yet they were not enough to stop the tragedy that unfolded. Each recorded detail, each precautionary measure, highlighted the lengths she went to protect herself and her children. Her family, friends, and neighbors had no idea of the extent of the psychological manipulation and control she endured from someone so close. How can we prevent situations like Kristil's? Share your thoughts below in the comments. Your insight can help create a safer, more aware community. Kristil Krug grew up in a family that believed in doing right by others. Her parents, Linda and Lars Grimsrud, raised her with strong values rooted in faith and community. From a young age, Kristil was taught to lean on her beliefs during difficult times, and to always extend kindness to those around her. She was the type of daughter who called home regularly, someone who carried herself with integrity and a quiet strength. Kristil was a dancer and a biochemical engineer, balancing a demanding professional life with raising 3 children. Friends and colleagues described her as intelligent, kind, and generous. She remembered birthdays, showed up for family events, and was always present for those she cared about. Relatives recall her as someone with a big heart, genuinely invested in the well-being of everyone around her. Her children were at the center of every decision she made, and she worked tirelessly to ensure their safety, happiness, and emotional stability. In the months before her death, Kristil's family made a heartbreaking discovery. While going through her journals, they found detailed records of her efforts to protect herself, carrying a concealed weapon, installing security cameras, and maintaining a detailed stalker log. These entries dated back to 2020, years before anyone realized the depth of danger she was facing. Kristil had documented her concerns and fears in a way she never fully shared with those closest to her. A private record of a woman trying to navigate a life that was increasingly unsafe, all while shielding her children and family from worry. These writings reveal a young woman caught in a tense, psychological battle. She was proactive, aware, and diligent, yet constrained by the limitations of what she could do alone. Her journals serve as a painful reminder of how victims often suffer in silence, meticulously preparing for danger that the world cannot yet see. Neighbors and co-workers consistently noted Kristil's care and diligence. She was the friend who remembered your struggles, the one who checked in just to see how you were doing. She was a mother who fought for her children's well-being, a professional who demanded precision in her work, and a friend known for warmth and reliability. Yet behind the smiles and accomplishments, her life had been shadowed by threats and harassment that no one could have predicted would escalate to murder. Kristil's days were a balancing act of professional responsibilities, parenting, and self-preservation. She was constantly mindful of her children's schedules, the neighborhood, and potential threats. Even as a competent, self-reliant woman, the orchestration of danger she faced was invisible to almost everyone around her. Her vigilance was not paranoia. It was a rational response to repeated, targeted harassment that would ultimately culminate in tragedy. Daniel Krug entered Kristil's life in what initially appeared to be a period of shared plans and mutual support. Her family welcomed him warmly, seeing in him a partner capable of supporting Kristil and her children. Together, they had children and began building a life that many would describe as a typical family structure. But over time, the relationship shifted. Disagreements became troubling, communication frayed, and what once seemed like ordinary marital conflict became increasingly toxic. Kristil's mother later told police that Kristil had been considering divorce and custody arrangements for their children before her untimely death. Separation had begun to strain the marriage, and with it, Daniel Krug began to exhibit controlling and manipulative behaviors. For months, Daniel orchestrated a campaign of psychological manipulation. He created a false online persona, posing as Kristil's ex-boyfriend, and sent threatening messages, vulgar emails, and deceptive communications. He carefully monitored her movements, ensuring he could observe her daily routines from leaving for work to returning home. Residents and neighbors reported seeing the same vehicle waiting for hours outside her home or along her typical routes, though they assumed it was relationship drama, something that often goes overlooked. Private investigators later confirmed that Daniel positioned himself strategically to watch Kristil, tracking her schedule with precision. Every threat, every harassing message, every moment of anxiety she endured had been engineered to coerce and control her. She had become trapped in a psychological battleground, one that no one could see, because the puppet master pulling the strings was the person she trusted most. Kristil's meticulous precautions, concealed firearms, security cameras, and detailed stalker log, were a testament to her awareness of danger, yet they were not enough to stop the tragedy that unfolded. Each recorded detail, each precautionary measure, highlighted the lengths she went to protect herself and her children. Her family, friends, and neighbors had no idea of the extent of the psychological manipulation and control she endured from someone so close. How can we prevent situations like Kristil's? Share your thoughts below in the comments. Your insight can help create a safer, more aware community. In the weeks leading up to October 2023, her parents, Linda and Lars Grimsrud, noticed their daughter growing more guarded, particularly in conversations regarding Daniel Krug. Kristil, usually warm and open during outings with her family, now appeared tense and distracted, carrying a quiet weight that she sought to shield from those closest to her. Despite her precautions, carrying a concealed firearm, installing security cameras, and maintaining a detailed stalker log, the harassment persisted. She meticulously recorded every message, noting times, dates, and content, creating a meticulous record of fear she hoped would protect her and her children. Friends and neighbors noticed subtle changes. She would glance over her shoulder while walking, pause at the sound of an unfamiliar engine, or hesitate at intersections, alert to the possibility of surveillance. Yet she presented a calm demeanor in public, keeping her children's routines intact and showing remarkable composure under extraordinary psychological pressure. Initially, police focused their investigation on the alleged ex-boyfriend. Publicly available reports later revealed that the man lived over 8 hours away and had an alibi that cleared him of suspicion. The source of the harassment remained a mystery until forensic evidence and digital footprints began pointing back to someone much closer to Kristil, a figure she trusted, her husband, Daniel Krug. Prosecutors would later assert that Daniel Krug created the false stalker persona with the sole intention of controlling Kristil. By instilling fear through digital deception and harassment, he sought to manipulate her into staying in the marriage, to retain authority over family decisions, and to maintain dominion over the home he once shared with her. As Kristil began to suspect the deception and expressed intentions to leave, the emotional abuse escalated. Weeks of psychological manipulation, threats, and surveillance culminated in a chilling, premeditated pattern. Months of coercion and stalking designed to terrify, control, and ultimately subjugate his wife. The public record paints a picture of a calculated progression from deception to fatal action, demonstrating a disturbing awareness of how control could be exerted even from behind the veil of a fictitious antagonist. Kristil's careful precautions, her concealed weapon, her security measures, and the logs meticulously tracking suspicious activity were not enough to prevent the tragedy. She was attempting to protect her children, maintain her household, and stay a step ahead of danger she did not yet fully understand was originating from her spouse. December 14, 2023, arrived with the quiet hum of Broomfield, Colorado settling into its nightly rhythm. The complex appeared peaceful. Children called inside for bedtime, neighbors shuttered windows, and the streets were quiet. Nothing outwardly suggested the impending horror within one of those units. But by late morning, the quiet routine fractured, and in the garage of the Krug residence, years of psychological tension reached a deadly peak. Investigators later reconstructed the moments leading to the confrontation. While the exact triggers may never be fully known, evidence indicates that Daniel Krug had been planning his actions for months. The confrontation was not spontaneous. Digital forensics and police reports suggest that he had researched the physical effects of blunt force trauma and the force required to incapacitate a person without leaving an immediate, detectable struggle. When the interaction escalated, Kristil, despite her situational awareness and training, was caught off guard in the enclosed space of the garage. Kristil, 44, was found unconscious, her body marked by both stab wounds and blunt force injuries. She had suffered multiple injuries to her back and a fatal wound to her chest. Blood pooled beneath her as first responders arrived, and the scene revealed signs of struggle that were all too brief. A sudden act of violence that left no time for her to defend herself effectively. Investigators meticulously documented the scene. They noted the positions of objects in the garage, the patterns of blood spatter, and the trajectory of the force applied. The combination of blunt force trauma and stabbing suggested an intent to subdue quickly and ensure the attack would be fatal. In the 2 months leading up to her death, Kristil's fear had been meticulously documented in her stalker log, which she maintained in hopes of creating a trail of evidence. Yet even this careful preparation could not prevent the assault from occurring in her own home. Daniel Krug's actions turned what should have been a routine domestic interaction into a fatal confrontation. By the time the 911 call was made, the scene was irrevocably transformed into a crime scene that would devastate the family, alarm the neighborhood, and haunt investigators and community members alike. The tragic events of that day culminated in Kristil being pronounced dead at 12:43 p.m., a mother of 3 whose life had been meticulously and tragically cut short. The first officers on the scene arrived expecting what they believed would be a routine welfare check. Daniel Krug had called 911 on December 14, 2023, citing concern for his wife after she failed to respond to calls and texts. But as they entered the Broomfield, Colorado residence, the scene they encountered immediately dispelled any notion of normalcy. Kristil Krug, unconscious in the garage, lay motionless, bearing blunt force trauma to her back and a stab wound to her chest. The absence of the perpetrator suggested a carefully planned escape, a detail that immediately signaled this was no crime of impulse or temporary rage. There had been no forced entry, no signs of a break-in. This was not a crime of opportunity. It was a calculated act of violence executed with chilling precision against a woman whose life was built around her family, her career, and her own sense of independence. Kristil, a mother of 3, a professional, a dancer, and a biochemist, had been extinguished in what would come to be recognized as a meticulously orchestrated murder. Investigators moved quickly to secure the scene, understanding that every second counted in preserving evidence that could unravel the truth. They meticulously documented the position of her body, noting the angles, the proximity to objects, and the surrounding layout of the garage. Every displaced item, every footprint, and every anomaly was cataloged. What had once been a familiar domestic space now became a stage of forensic discovery, revealing the calculated nature of the attack. One of the most significant pieces of evidence came from Kristil's own vigilance. 4 months, she had maintained a stalker log, recording threatening messages, suspicious incidents, and details that now formed a chilling prelude to her death. Officers and forensic analysts began to piece together this timeline, mapping out the harassment and manipulation that had been directed toward her over the preceding 2 months. These records revealed a pattern of control, deception, and intimidation that had been systematically enacted to unsettle her sense of safety. Early investigative efforts initially focused on the ex-boyfriend Kristil had reported as harassing her. Emails, texts, and social media communications were analyzed, and investigators worked to verify his alibi. Within hours, it became clear that this individual lived over 8 hours away at the time of the murder. With the ex-boyfriend removed as a viable suspect, the investigation took a darker turn. Attention shifted to the person who had been closest to Kristil, the man who had shared her home, her life, and her family, Daniel Krug. Every digital trace, every financial transaction, and every reported interaction would soon cast light on a horrifying truth. The architect of the threats, the orchestrator of fear, and ultimately the killer, was the very person Kristil had trusted above all others. Witnesses took the stand, recounting incidents of subtle but escalating control. Family members described how Kristil had begun to fear leaving the house alone, how she had increased security measures, and how she had confided in friends about her mounting anxiety. Experts in behavioral analysis explained the psychological tactics Daniel had employed, portraying him as a manipulator who had engineered a world of fear while maintaining the appearance of normalcy to those outside the household. The defense attempted to argue self-defense, suggesting that Daniel's actions were misunderstood or misrepresented, but these claims were systematically dismantled by the prosecution. The jury was presented with an unbroken chain of premeditation, from the creation of a false online identity to the ultimate confrontation that led to Kristil's death in her garage. Every detail pointed to planning, coercion, and intent, leaving little room for doubt about the deliberate nature of the crime. Senior Deputy District Attorney Kate Armstrong summed it up in court. She was putting the pieces together, and he was running out of time. The courtroom was tense, every word weighing heavily as the jury absorbed the full scope of manipulation, fear, and calculated violence that had led to a mother of three losing her life. After days of testimony, examination of digital evidence, and witness accounts, the jury delivered its verdict. Daniel Krug was found guilty on all counts: first-degree murder, stalking, and criminal impersonation. The weight of the evidence had left no room for ambiguity. In April 2025, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Law enforcement officials expressed a sense of closure, acknowledging the meticulous work that had brought Daniel to justice. Yet, for Kristil's children, her family, and the wider community, the sentence could not erase the loss or the trauma they endured. The courtroom drama, the hours of testimony, and the careful presentation of evidence underscored a sobering truth. This was a case where manipulation, control, and premeditation culminated in tragedy. The verdict confirmed that justice had been served in the eyes of the law, but the human cost of Daniel Krug's actions would resonate far beyond the courtroom, serving as a chilling reminder of the dangers that can lurk behind the most familiar faces in one's life. As we reflect on the months of manipulation and stalking that led to Kristil Krug's death, it raises a difficult question for all of us. What legal protections do you think could have prevented this tragedy? Could restraining orders, closer monitoring of digital harassment, or stricter stalking laws have made a difference? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your insight could help others recognize danger and create safer communities. In April 2025, Daniel Krug was convicted on all charges, and the Colorado jury delivered a sentence of life without the possibility of parole. He is currently serving his sentence at Sterling Correctional Facility in Sterling, Colorado. Broomfield Chief of Police Enia Hempelman publicly stated, "I am extremely pleased with the verdict, and proud of everyone who came together to make this trial a success." The chief emphasized the conclusive and damning nature of the evidence, yet acknowledged the verdict could not bring Kristil back to her family and friends, only provide some closure to a painful chapter. For Kristil's children and her extended family, the aftermath has been a delicate balance of public scrutiny, grief, and the ongoing need to maintain normalcy. Every day they navigate a world that has been irreversibly altered. The children serve as living reminders of the life and love Kristil poured into them, and her family has made it their mission to ensure her legacy, her kindness, care, and devotion, is remembered and honored. Kristil's family members, shaken by the magnitude of the loss, have channeled their grief into advocacy. They speak publicly about domestic violence, emphasizing the urgent need for open communication between victims and their families. Their message is clear. Mothers and guardians must feel safe enough to voice struggles without fear of judgment or reprisal. Barriers such as shame, fear, or the desire to shield loved ones from worry often prevent victims from seeking help, and Kristil's case has become a catalyst for dismantling those barriers. Her family has held memorial events, created educational initiatives, and actively worked to raise awareness about stalking and domestic abuse, ensuring her children grow up understanding both the risks and the rights that come with safety planning. The Krug case exposes critical gaps in the legal system's ability to protect victims of domestic violence. Research and statistics indicate that when a known abuser has access to firearms, the risk of fatal escalation increases dramatically. Kristil's murder has even been cited in discussions at higher judicial levels to highlight how early recognition of stalking and controlling behaviors could save lives. Key warning signs include intensified surveillance, unsolicited tracking, and repetitive manipulative contact. Recognizing these behaviors early and taking practical steps such as developing safety plans with trusted friends and family can prevent tragedies. Silence, unfortunately, can be deadly. Public reaction to the case was immediate and intense. News coverage and social media debates highlighted the psychological complexity of domestic abuse, the dangers of fabricated threats, and the chilling effectiveness of calculated manipulation. Experts have emphasized that when abusers create false narratives, such as the fake ex-boyfriend scenario in Kristil's life, it can mask ongoing control, making early detection difficult. For every Kristil Krug, there are untold numbers facing similar invisible terror in their own homes. Families, friends, and community members are left to grapple with questions. Could this have been prevented? Were there missed warning signs? Could intervention, perhaps through legal or social services, have changed the outcome? Every detail, from Kristil's meticulously kept stalker log to her precautions like concealed carry and security cameras, paints the picture of a woman trying to maintain agency in a life shadowed by deceit. Despite her careful measures, the tragedy was not averted. And for those watching, reflecting on the warning signs Kristil experienced is crucial. If you know someone encountering stalking, harassment, or escalating control behaviors, what legal or practical steps could be taken to prevent escalation? How can communities, families, and friends intervene before a situation turns lethal? Share your insights and experiences in the comments below. Your knowledge could empower someone, and together, we can help create a network of awareness, protection, and prevention. The case also serves as a haunting reminder. Abusers often operate where they are least expected. Daniel Krug orchestrated months of deception, and his proximity, both physical and emotional, allowed him to manipulate the narrative until it reached a deadly conclusion. For Kristil's children, every day is a lesson in resilience, and every public discussion of the case reinforces the importance of vigilance, communication, and support systems for victims. While justice was served in the courtroom, the human cost of this tragedy continues to ripple through Broomfield and beyond. Families are left rebuilding trust, redefining safety, and teaching the next generation about the importance of recognizing danger. Kristil's legacy, however, lives on not just in her children but in the community initiatives, advocacy programs, and increased awareness her case has inspired. Every shared story, every discussion about warning signs, and every comment from viewers becomes part of a collective effort to prevent another life from being taken in a similar pattern of control and abuse. As we continue through this series, remember this: domestic abuse and stalking often unfold behind closed doors. Victims like Chris still take extraordinary measures to protect themselves, yet danger can lurk closest to home. What lessons can we learn? How can systems and communities act more effectively? And perhaps most importantly, what can you do if you witness similar patterns in your own circle? Your voice matters. Share your experiences in the comments, help others see the signs, and contribute to a community that acts before it is too late. It's important to reflect on the full arc of Kristil Krug's story, a narrative of devotion, love, and ultimately, a tragedy that was both preventable and devastating. Kristil was a mother of three, a professional woman, a dancer, a biochemist, and someone who cared deeply for her family, her community, and the people around her. Her life was filled with kindness, generosity, and a drive to protect those she loved. Yet, the very person she trusted most, her husband Daniel Krug, used that trust to orchestrate a campaign of harassment and manipulation that escalated into murder. The stark reality is that even the most conscientious, prepared, and vigilant individuals can be blindsided by calculated violence from someone close. We have explored how months of stalking, fabricated threats, and psychological manipulation created an environment in which Kristil's safety was compromised. We've seen how she took extraordinary measures, installing security cameras, carrying a concealed firearm, maintaining detailed logs, to protect herself and her children, while still trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy in daily life. And yet, despite these efforts, the culmination of these orchestrated actions led to her untimely death. This is a chilling reminder that awareness, vigilance, and intervention are critical in cases of domestic abuse and stalking. For the families left behind, including Kristil's children, the aftermath is a landscape of grief, trauma, and the difficult task of rebuilding. Her children now live in a world shaped by this tragedy, carrying the weight of a mother's absence while also holding on to the lessons she left them: love, resilience, and the importance of vigilance. Kristil's family has chosen to honor her memory through advocacy, raising awareness about domestic violence, emotional abuse, stalking, and the critical importance of recognizing warning signs. They have spoken publicly, shared Kristil's story, and worked to ensure that other victims might be better protected, that future tragedies might be prevented. And this is where the responsibility of society comes in. Each of us, friends, neighbors, coworkers, and community members, can play a role in recognizing when someone may be in danger. Whether it's noticing repeated patterns of control, harassment, or unusual behavior, or simply being willing to ask difficult questions and offer support, intervention can save lives. The Krug case highlights not only individual vigilance but also systemic gaps that can allow an abuser to escalate without detection. Authorities, law enforcement, and legal systems can improve protective measures, yet the first line of defense is often family and community awareness. As viewers, you are invited to take a moment and reflect. What could have been done to prevent this? Were there red flags that were overlooked? How can awareness of stalking, harassment, and psychological abuse translate into actionable steps to protect those in vulnerable positions? Sharing your insights in the comments can help educate others, spread awareness, and potentially save lives. Your voice becomes part of a broader conversation that can empower communities to act before tragedy strikes. If you believe in creating content that does more than recount events, that educates, raises awareness, and advocates for prevention, then please subscribe to Bruised Voice. Join a community of viewers who care about turning awareness into action, who support families affected by violence, and who are committed to learning how to identify danger before it escalates. Every subscription, every share, and every comment strengthens the collective knowledge and vigilance that can prevent similar tragedies in the future. And remember, if you or someone you know is in immediate danger, help is available. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is accessible 24/7 at 1-800-799-FIVI. Local police departments, shelters, and advocacy organizations provide immediate assistance. Reaching out for help is not a sign of weakness. It is a courageous first step toward survival. Acting early, recognizing the warning signs, and seeking protection can change the trajectory of a life. Honor Kristil's memory by learning from her story, understanding the dangers that may lurk close to home, and committing to awareness, prevention, and action. Carry with you the lessons of vigilance, care, and the profound need to listen to and support those around us. Kristil Krug's life, though tragically cut short, serves as a testament to courage, love, and the enduring importance of protecting those we hold dear. Let her story inspire action, conversation, and change. Share your thoughts in the comments below, discuss what you have learned, and take the first steps in your own community to help prevent similar tragedies from occurring.